Brachos Daf Yudches speaks primarily about the dead. It starts off with a discussion of what is the halacha of an oinain, somebody who has lost a close relative, but that relative has not yet had the burial. It moves on to the concept of la'ag l'rosh, which is to be careful not to mock the dead in any way. There are a number of different ways of accidentally causing mocking of the dead. And then the Gemara discusses what precisely the dead know about the world of the living. Are they aware of what's going on, or are they not? And the Gemara will try to bring a number of proofs from some interesting incidents in each direction. So the Gemara is referring to the Mishnah. The Mishnah had said that somebody who has a close relative who died, and that person is in front of him, is pater from Kriya Shema, does not have to say the mitzvah of Kriya Shema and a number of other mitzvahs. As a matter of fact, it doesn't have to do any mitzvahs. So Gemara now asks, is it only if the dead is in front of him? What if the dead is in a different room or a different house? Is he not pater then as well? So the Gemara brings a brisa to support this claim. The Gemara says, the brisa says as follows: somebody who has a close relative who died, who is in front of him, so he should go to a different room to eat. Shouldn't eat in front of the dead because it's mocking to the dead. It's doing something which the dead are not able to do, which they once enjoyed. If he doesn't have another room, he should go to his friend's house. If he doesn't have a friend with a house, he should put a mechitza, a wall of some sort, between him and the dead. And if he can't do even that, and he has to eat, he should at least turn his face away. It's a lesson for ourselves. We should not be doing something which is mocking to something else, even if that other thing is inanimate. We should not be encouraging bad traits and rudeness and crudeness in ourselves. Now, the Gemara says, this person then, when he eats, does not have to say a bracha. He should not lie down and eat in the way of the fancy people. He should not eat meat. He should not drink wine. He should not say brachas hamazon. Others should not be maitzim with a bracha, and he should not be included in a zimun. And he doesn't have to say shema, and he doesn't have to say shema, and he doesn't put on tefillin, and he doesn't do any of the mitzvahs that it says in the Torah. On Shabbos, he does do all these mitzvahs. Now, the Mishnah, the Brisa points out that there is a machlekes about one halacha. On Shabbos, does he have a mitzvah of ona? Does he have the mitzvah to be together with his wife, which every man has, on Shabbos night, conditions permitting? So Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says he is chayiv in that mitzvah because it is not his own personal mitzvah. It's an obligation to his wife. And the Tanna Kamma says he's not chayiv in that because he's not chayiv in everything else. Now, this Mishnah clearly said that he should eat in a different room if he could, and yet it said that he's pater from Shema. So you see, even though he's in a different room, he's pater from Shema. So that would be contradictory to our Mishnah that said that it's only pater from all the mitzvahs if the dead is in front of him, lefanav. So the Gemara offers two answers. First, the Gemara wants to say that it's a different part of the Mishnah. We're not referring to the case of the Mishnah where he's in a different room. We're referring to the part of the Mishnah where he's in the same room, but he turns his head away. That's where we said that he's pater from all the mitzvahs. But you're right, if he manages to go to a different room, then he's obligated in all the mitzvahs. Now the Gemara offers a second answer. Rashi says, in front of him, the dead being in front of him does not mean that he is physically in his presence. It means that the obligation to care for this dead person is upon him. I think it proves that that is what the word lefanav means from Avram. Avram, when Sarah, his wife, had died, so he went to Bnei Ches, who lived in Hebron, and he was trying to buy a grave. So the pasuk there says as follows: Vayakam Avram al pnei meisai. Avram got up from being in front of his dead, and he went. And he spoke to the people of Ches, and he said the following thing: I'm a stranger in your land, give me your grave, v'ekbara meisi milfanai, and I will bury my dead from before me. So you see, he's still calling it my dead is before me, even though he clearly is not in front of the dead, because it says that he got up from before his dead. So the term lefanav, when referring to the dead, means that the dead is your responsibility. Now the Gemara says, is it only meisai? Is it only if it's his dead, meaning it's a close relative? What if it's a dead person that you are watching for somebody else? Somebody else's responsibility, but they gave you the responsibility. Now, the dead require shmira. They need to be watched all the time up until the kfura, the burial. So the Gemara says, yeah, if you're watching, you're responsible for it also. It's either one. If it's yours, a close relative, or it's your responsibility because you're watching them. Either one is enough reason to make you not obligated to do any of the mitzvahs that it says in the Torah. Now the Gemara says, okay, what if it's neither of those? What if you're just walking through the cemetery? We have a brisa that says a person should not walk through a cemetery wearing tefillin, carrying a sefer Torah, learning, or doing any of these things. So you see, it seems to clearly indicate that walking through a cemetery, a person is patur from all these things. The Gemara says, no, this is a different concept. That's not because he's occupied with a mitzvah and he's patur from mitzvahs. That's because it is mocking to the dead to be performing mitzvahs in front of them. They cannot do mitzvahs anymore. Therefore, that only applies if he's within 4 amos of a grave. Within 4 amos of a grave, you should not perform any mitzvahs, but further away, doesn't apply. Our case, where it's your responsibility or it's your relative, that applies wherever you are. Now the Gemara goes to the halachos of somebody who's watching the dead, a mishamer of the mace. So he's watching him to protect him from spirits, and he's also watching him to protect him from more practical things like mice. In those days, they did not have refrigeration. So the Gemara records the halacha that if one person is watching the dead, he is patur from tefillin, and all the mitzvahs of the Torah. But if there are 2 people that are watching it, so they take turns. One can watch, and the other one can perform the mitzvahs. Then the Gemara says that Benazzi says that if they're on a ship, then they can both leave the dead and go perform a mitzvahs. What's a machlokes? Ravina says machlokes is there a concern of mice on the boat? Apparently, the other concerns are not relevant on the boat. And the question is, are there mice on a boat that can potentially cause harm to the body of the dead? Now the Gemara says a number of halachas related to showing proper respect for the dead. The Gemara says somebody who's carrying some mice, the bones from one place to another, should not put it in a leather sack and sling it over the back of a donkey and ride. You should carry it respectfully. The Gemara says the same halacha applies to a sefer Torah. But if you're afraid of goyim that are going to attack you, some thieves or bandits, then you can put it on the horse and ride. The Gemara says, well, for sure, sefer Torah is obviously the same halacha. You have to at least show as much respect for a sefer Torah as you do for a sack of remains. The Gemara says, yeah, that's correct. But the chiddush is that the sefer Torah, you can also be lenient and ride with it on the donkey or the horse if you are afraid of being attacked. The Gemara brings another halacha about being respectful for the dead. Rav Yehuda says anybody who sees a funeral procession and does not join them is violating the halacha of Lagarosh, which is quoting a pasuk in Mishlei, which says as follows: Lo'eg l'rosh cheref oiseyu. Somebody who is mocking to the humble, meaning the poor, is embarrassing he who created him. Meaning, if you are denigrating to the poor, then you are harming the Creator. You are insulting to the Creator. So the poor here refers to the dead who are bereft of mitzvahs and other things that they are able to do. So then the Gemara says, what about somebody who joins the funeral? What do you say about him? So the Gemara says about him, we say wonderful things. Malvei Hashem chaynein do. Somebody who helps the poor is considered to be walking together with Hashem. And we also say mechabdei chaynein evyon, that you consider to be respecting Hashem. Okay, now the Gemara brings an incident which relates to the concept of Lo'eg l'rosh. The Gemara says that Reb Chia and Rabbi Yonasan were walking through a cemetery, and Rabbi Yonasan's tzitzis were dragging on the floor or on the graves. So Reb Chia said, pick up those tzitzis, don't let them drag, because otherwise the dead will say, look at this guy. Tomorrow he's going to be right here with us, and now he's a big shot, and he's making fun of us, having his tzitzis dragging on our heads. So the Gemara says, hold on a second, who said the dead know what's going on? Isn't there a pasuk that says the following? It says, "V'hameisim einam yodim." The dead don't know anything. This is what Rabbi Yonasan said to Rabbi Chia. So he said, Rabbi Chia said to him, "Okay, that's not the pshat in the pasuk, and if you obviously you never learned it, and if you learned it, you didn't chazer it, and if you chazer it, you didn't learn it a third time, and if you learned it 3 times, you didn't understand it in the first place." Look at the pasuk again. It says as follows from the beginning. Ki hachayim yodim she'emuzu. The living know that they are going to die. V'hameisim einim yodim me'uma. And the dead don't know anything. What do you think it's talking about here? It's not talking about the living of the dead. It's talking about tzaddikim nirshayim. Chayim, the living, is referring to tzaddikim, who even in their death are called alive. And Risha and the Mesim here, the dead, it means Rishayim. The tzaddikim know that they're going to die, and therefore they are careful to use their time wisely. The Rishayim don't. Where do you see that tzaddikim are called alive even after they die? The Gemara says from Benayo ben Yoyada, who's called Ben Ish Chai, the son of a living man. Living in the sense that he was still alive even after the death. Now the Gemara quotes the entire pasuk and explains it word for word. The pasuk says as follows: Ben Yehuda ben Ishchai, Rav Palim Mekabtzel Hu Hika Shnei Ariel Moyav Hu Yard V'Hika Es Ari B'Sei Chabar B'Yem HaShelig. So this means as follows: Ben Ishchai is that he's a tzaddik, like we said, even after his death. Rav Palim Mekabtzel. Mekabtzel is the name of his father. Rav Palim means he does a lot of things. What this means is that he brought a lot of people close to Torah. He did a lot for the teaching of Torah. Huhikas Shnei Ariel Moyav. What does that mean? He struck the two. Ariel refers to the Beis Hamikdash. Moyav also refers to the Beis Hamikdash, because it was built by Shlomo HaMelech, who was descended from Rus HaMayaviyah. What does it mean? He struck the Beis Hamikdash, that there was nobody left in the times of both Batei Mikdash who were as well versed as he is. He struck the lion on inside the pit on the snowy day. What does that mean? So the Gemara brings two pshatim. The one pshat is that he broke ice in order to go to the mikvah, that he should be able to learn. And the other pshat is that he learned Teres Kaihanim, which is called the lion because it is very hard medrash, and it is called inside the pit because it is the middle sefer. And he did this all on a winter's day. Okay, having brought a source that a tzaddik is called alive even after he dies, Gemara now brings a source that a rasha is called not alive even while he still lives. One is from Tzidkiyahu, who is called Va'ata Chalal Rasha Nasi Yisrael. He's called Chalal. Chalal means a cadaver, even though he was alive. And the second one is the following: Al Pishnayim Edom Shleisha Edom Yumas HaMeis. Based on 2 or 3 witnesses, shall the dead be killed? Dead cannot be killed. Obviously, it's referring to a rasha who is considered to be part of the dead even while he still lives. The Gemara now explores whether the dead know what's going on in the world of the living with a few incidents. The Gemara says that Rav Chia, after he passed away, his sons went to work on their inheritance, and they invested so much time that they forgot their learning. They were working hard trying to recover it, and one of them said to the other, "Our father is surely pained over this, that we forgot our learning." And he said, "How do you know that our father knows anything that's happening?" So he quoted the pasuk in Sefer Iyov that says, "Yichabdu banov v'lo yada." His children respect him, and he knows not. So you see that the dead do not know what's flying. So the Gemara said, but what about the next pasuk? Ach b'sari olav yichav v'nafshi olav te'avel. His flesh is in pain, and his soul mourns. So Rabbi Yitzchak says it means as follows: the worms which eat the flesh sting like a needle in the flesh of the living, and he feels his own pain. He doesn't feel the pain of the living. The Gemara now brings 3 incidents which seem to indicate that the dead do know what's happening by the living, and the Gemara rejects each as not approved. The first one is that there was a chassid who on Erev Rosh Hashanah gave money to the poor, and his wife was upset, so he left the house and he went to sleep in the cemetery. That was Rosh Hashanah night, and he heard the 2 spirits of 2 young girls in the cemetery speaking to each other. One said, "Let's go fly around the world and see what Gezer is coming this year. It's Rosh Hashanah." And the other one said, "I can't. I am buried in a mat of reeds. I cannot escape. You go. Tell me what you find out." So she went and she came back and she said, "What I have heard is that there is going to be hail close to the time of the first planting, and anybody who planted is going to lose his entire crop." So this chassid who was lying nearby heard this. He went and he didn't plant in the first rainy season. He waited till the second rainy season. Everybody else lost their crop and he did not. So it seems like it worked out. So the next year he went and he slept in the cemetery again on Rosh Hashanah night, and he heard the same conversation. And this time the soul came back and said to her friend, "This time is going to be a powerful east wind which is going to ruin anything that's planted in the second planting season. But if you're planting in the first season, the implication is it'll be okay." So this chassid went and he planted in the first season. Everybody else planted in the second season because they learned a lesson from last year and they lost their crop again. Except for him, he didn't. Now this man's wife was suspicious, and he said, "How do you know what's going on? How do you know the thing?" So he told her what happened. Not long afterwards, this woman got into a fight with the mother of the girl who was buried in the mat of reeds. And in order to bother her, she said, "Your daughter, she's buried in a mat of reeds. I can show you. I know what's going on by you better than you do." So that Rosh Hashanah again, the chassid went to the cemetery and he tried to listen in. And this time he heard one spirit say to the other, "Let's go and fly around the world and see what's happening. What's Gezer for this year?" And she said, "You better stop. We better stop. Leave me alone, because the living are listening to our conversations." So the Gemara says, okay, so you see that she knew. She knew that she was being overheard. How did she know what's happening? So the Gemara says, Lav Dafka, maybe somebody who was alive and heard the story died, and he went and told her. Second incident, the Gemara quotes that Zeiri used to always leave his money with his hostess. One time he was staying in the house of Rav, and the hostess passed away, and he didn't know where the money was. So he went to the cemetery and he asked the woman after her death, where is the money? So she said, I put it underneath the hinge of the door, which is a hole in the ground, in such and such place. And by the way, go tell my mother that she should please send me my comb and my makeup with this and this person who's going to die tomorrow, so she could bring it to me. Rashi explains that she was pained that she passed away so young, which is why she said this expression of bitterness. So the Gemara says, so you see, she knew who was going to die. The Gemara says it's not a proof. Maybe there is a voice that announces to the dead who's about to join them, but other things they don't know. The Gemara now brings another incident to prove whether or not the dead know what is happening in this world. The Gemara says that Shmuel's father used to watch money for the orphans, but when he died, they didn't know where the money was. People were upset. They said he ate up all the money of the orphans. Shmuel wanted to defend his father, so he went into the cemetery and he wanted to find where his father was. He did not know where he was buried. So he saw a vision as if the dead came out and were sitting in a circle in front of him. And he asked them, I'm looking for Abba. Shmuel's father's name was Abba. And they said to him, there's a lot of Abbas here. So he said, I'm looking for Abba, the son of Abba. Apparently that was Shmuel's father's name. They said to him, there's a lot of people by that name also. So he said, listen, I'm looking for Abba, the son of Abba, who is the father of Shmuel. Oh, they said to him, oh, him. Okay, for him you have to go to Yeshiva Shel Milo. That's where you'll find him. While he was there, he saw his friend Levi, who was sitting outside the circle. He said, why are you excluded from the circle? He said to them, because of the years that I did not go to the Yeshiva of Rav Afas, it's a Gemara in Ksubis, that Levi and Shmuel avoided this Yeshiva. So Shmuel was upset. He said, that means I'm also going to be excluded from the circle. In the meantime, his father arrived. So he said to his father, why are you smiling and crying? Because that's what he saw that he was involved in. So his father said, I am crying because you're going to be here soon. And I'm smiling because I see that you're very well respected in the world of the living. He said, well, if I'm so respected, so then let them listen to me and put Levi inside the circle. So they put Levi inside the circle. Okay, so he said to him, where's the money of the Yisaimim, the orphans? So he said, I put it in the mill. And you'll see that there is a sandwich there. There's our money on top, our money on the bottom. The money in between belongs to the orphans. He said, why did you store it like that? He said, well, if somebody stole it, they would steal the top money. At least it wouldn't be the orphans. And if it got ruined by proximity to the ground, maybe if it rusted or something, at least it would be our money that got ruined, but the money of the Yisaimim, the orphans, would be safe. So the Gemara says, so you see, Shmuel's father knew that Shmuel was chashiv. He was considered well respected in the world. So the Gemara says, not a proof. Shmuel was about to die. It could be that the voice that went out and told the dead who was about to join them, told him that he's a chashuv a person. The Gemara now says that even Rav Yonason, who was the one in the incident with the tzitzis, who said that the dead don't know what's going on in this world, he himself retracted his position and he said that they do know. How did he find out? What's the proof? Because you can see that the dead speak to each other. Because when Moshe was about to die, the pasuk says, "Vayam Hashem Elav Zayser Es Asher Nishbati L'Avram Yitzchak U'Yaakov Lemor." This is the land that I promised to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Lemor. That sounds like go tell them, meaning when you die, go tell them, or maybe they should say it further. So Gemara says, what did HaKadosh Baruch Hu tell Moshe? He said, "You're going to die. Go tell Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov that I kept my promise. I'm bringing them into the land." So the Gemara says, I don't understand. If they didn't know, if they don't know what's going on, so what do they care? Why does Hashem need them to be told that they kept the promise? They don't know what's flying anyway. So the Gemara says, well, according to you that they know what's flying, why do they need to be told? The Gemara says, Hashem wanted them to have Hakaras Tov to Moshe Rabbeinu, that he brought them to the edge of Eretz Yisrael.